Hello everybody, and welcome to my Sheos Set 5 card first impressions. So this will be going over Zack's new Sheos planet profile video and all the new cards presented, and I will be giving my first impressions and kind of rating them. This is definitely going to be very opinionated, so if you disagree with me, comment that in the comments below. Before we begin, however, I would like to ask you to join our community by subscribing to the Chaos Galaxy YouTube channel and also joining the Discord to talk about Chaos Galaxy, but also be able to play competitively with other Chaos Galaxy fans. All the links will be down below. So I guess let's get started by showing you how this rating system is going to work. So it's going to be out of 15, with each category being out of 5. Now, the thing is, art compared to stats and abilities are definitely not the same. So if a card has stats and abilities at 4 out of 5, but art at like 2, it doesn't mean that the card is bad. It just means that it averaged out that way. So definitely try to take more interest in the individual ratings instead of the total, because the total usually doesn't really define how competitive it will be. Art is how memorable I think it will be and the amount of good detailing. So that means I rate it how recognizable it would be just by face, and then also just general presentation and detailing and how nice it looks. Stats are how balanced the cards are and whether or not it should have been buffed or debuffed. So I compare it to other cards in the same planet and with the same stars and see how they kind of line up in that direction, and just general cards as well, just seeing how they line up in general stars to power ratio. And then also I look at if they should have been buffed or debuffed relating to their ability, because that's really important. Finally, we have abilities, and this could be how combo effective they could be and the amount of potential. So just kind of like seeing how potentially good this could be, how many combos it could be with, what it could do for decks, and also the synergy with stats. So that's the ratings. Moving on to our first card, Firebolt Inari. Firebolt Inari is quite an interesting card. Starting off with its art, I love the art. Good job, Gavora. I will say it's some fantastic art. It's just got a really nice pose, and the flames just make it look so cool and stuff. Like, I never knew that you could make a rodent look so cool, and Gavora did it just like that. Its stats, on the other hand, are fairly lackluster. The only other 7-star Sheos creature is Auburn Commander, and he, I will say that he is kind of the same as this one, just with like a bit more power. So it isn't the worst thing ever, I guess you could say, but I don't know. 400 power, is good for 4 points, but it doesn't make it to 5 points. And then the health just, I don't know, the health blows in my opinion. I mean, it's able to get you just a lot of stronger like 7 and 8-star creatures. Even like Pelfam could beat it. There's a lot of things that could just easily take it out in one hit. So I give it a 2.5. I think it's borderline decent, but I don't think it's quite there. The ability is also kind of weak, unfortunately. If the creature would attack and kill an opponent's creature, you can shuffle that creature into their galaxy instead. And I just don't get this, because I don't know. I feel like Sheos doesn't give this card a good reason to use that ability, because they're all about like destroying it and stuff. I could see something going on, but it's not clear in my mind right now. So unfortunately, the art is the only real good thing about this card, which is just really unfortunate. The stats aren't bad though either, so I wouldn't say it's all lost either. Next is Treva. So Treva's art is definitely quite minimalistic, which isn't that bad. I think the action of him like throwing the ball kind of looks a bit off, but I think it's okay. So I think it's a pretty nice card, and I like his face. His face just looks very kooky, and I think that works for this entire character, just being some robotic guy who's just going like, oh, blah, blah, stuff like that. Next is stats, and for stats, it's actually pretty decent compared to other 4-star Sheos creatures. It does have weaker health, but most Sheos creatures do, so I thought it was fairly good, but I think 4-star works well with this, but I don't know, it's not really anything too special. Its ability, though, is also pretty good. After your opponent plays a creature during your turn, you can free play this handed creature to a creature or battle zone on your planet. So it's kind of like a mini Orbov. Not even a mini, like a stronger Orbov, I guess you could say. The only issue is that it has to be handed, so you have to keep it alive. And also, it will probably get knocked out pretty easily. Most cards could probably crush this foe. But I think it's overall a decent card. I think it could work really well with some things, but definitely not the most interesting card of the bunch. Next is Sera Carrier, and its art is, I think it's pretty cool. I like the inspiration from it, but I think it just looks a bit wonky. I don't think it's going to be as memorable, but it's still an overall quite nice card. It's pretty clean. I like the cracks at the bottom, but then again, it's just mostly kind of, it's very bland. I think there could have been a bit more detail, just a bit more texturing maybe, but it's alright. The stats are not insane. They're pretty weak, and this also goes with the ability. The ability synergy does not really work well for this. Compared to Treva, of course it has like an even amount of power and health, which isn't bad, but it's just kind of weak for a 4-star in general too. And the thing is, the ability is alright, because once per turn, when you have 2 or more zone Sheos creatures, you can draw 1 card. Which, this is good for, you know, getting the Sheos ability, and that's great. That's fantastic, but since the stats are weak, this guy will easily be destroyed in 1 hit, in my opinion. So, by most things. So, I just think that the synergy is just off. I think it could have had more power. I think it could have been more like, I don't know, 200. And they could have had, like, some really weak power to, it could have been weakened in power and just could have sat there so that you could get more cards. But, and it's not like this thing can't handle anything. It's just, it can't handle a lot of stronger cards. So, but I can see this being used a lot of times when your opponent has exhausted your resources. So it's not terrible by any means, but it's, I don't know, the synergy just doesn't look great. Next is Mouth. This guy's art is honestly kind of wonky. I mean, I can see it being kind of cool, but like, I don't know, those eyes just don't look good in my opinion, and the body just looks very rigid and blank. I think there could have been just a smidge more detail. The elemental things coming out doesn't look too bad, although I will say that beam looks very photoshopped in. I'm not saying that Zack photoshopped it in, but like Zack, like I don't think any of your art is bad. I don't know. This is just my personal preference. Yeah, but it's kind of weird. And I guess that's what he was kind of going for too. So, but I think it's weak in my opinion. However, unlike Firebolt, this guy does the complete 180. His stats are quite good for a 6 stars. 310 across the board. Yes, unfortunately, it does mean that it does take a lot of hits from stronger creatures, but I think it's great for a 6-star in general. And this becomes even better with its ability. This creature can enter one battle zone per turn for every 3 killed Sheos creatures you have. So by the end of the game, technically speaking, you could be doing, as long as you have enough battle zones, this could be a great finisher to just get a 9-pointer. I think the only thing that kind of misses the mark is the fact that there's a lot of setup that's involved, but I could definitely see a deck being revolved around setting up this card for a big finisher. So I can't wait to see where this goes. This is definitely one of the better cards of this planet profile. Next is Wick, and I gotta say, this is another great card by Gavora. I don't think it'll be as memorable, but I do think that especially the head for Wick is very nice and goopy, but everything is nice and goopy too. But one of my favorite things too, the fire just looks, I don't know, something about it just makes it look so clean, and it just looks great. It kind of looks like Okami, if you know what I'm saying, that type of thing, and just looks very like Japanese style curls and stuff. So I don't know, I think it's a great card. I just don't think it's as memorable in terms of art. Unfortunately, he kind of wanes in its stats and abilities. The stats, 110, 110, 3 stars. It's kind of weak. It's not terrible, but it's kind of weak. And then ability is, if you draw this card through a card ability, you can kill it from your hand to free play a 6-star or lower galaxy Sheos creature. So this could work, but I just feel like it's way too specific. The card ability thing, I don't know. It just, like, he did make a card that I'm going to show off a little later. Or, well, actually, Sera character kind of does this. It's just kind of too specific. Also, 6-star or lower means that you can't play some of the stronger, better Sheos creatures, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's not terrible, but it's pretty weak just because of its specificity. And then also, I just feel like it's a waste because you're just going to kill it. I mean, what are you going to do with that? Just let it die? Yeah, so unfortunately, a more disappointing card in terms of its stats and ability. But I could see it working if there's some more synergy with, like, lots of cards. Next is Pyronist. So Pyronist, in terms of art, it's quite nice. I'd say it's pretty basic, but I think it works for this one. The monk on the bottom just looks very dead, and I think that works. And also more Spain information, so points for that. But I think one of the coolest things, and I don't know if Zack did this on purpose, the thing on the top, not only does it look nice, but it goes red, green, and blue, and that really reminds me of the Zelda Courage, Power, and Wisdom. So I don't know if you did that, like, directly off of Zelda inspiration, but I just think it reminds me of that. So I think it's an overall pretty nice card. Stats is also not terrible for a 3-star. The health, although it can't really do anything, I think the ability makes up for it, and the health is a pretty good wall in general. It just does a bit better at handling things, and that's good for its ability. Once per turn, you can return one killed 5-star or lower creature to the top of your galaxy except for Pyronist. So this is good for just recycling cards, and if you can keep Pyronist on the board for long enough, you could get some good cards. The thing that's really holding it back is the fact that it's 5-star or lower, making it so that it can't become too OP, which is unfortunate. But I understand why that would have to happen. So it's a pretty decent ability, and I think it's going to be a good engine for recycling in decks. Next is one actually shown in the preview, McCrabba Blab. McCrabba Blab. So yeah, so McCrabba Blab is The art I think is quite great. I think it's gonna be really memorable. In general, it just looks so funky, and it's just cute and funny. I like it. Unfortunately, it suffers greatly with no ability, and I'll just say that any card with no ability becomes a 0 out of 5, unfortunately, just because it's a card, but it can't do anything. The stats, however, are pretty not too shabby. 2 stars for 190. This will get you a nice 2-point swing. Of course, it'll get hit by pretty much anything, but the power is definitely high enough that it makes it a good hitter, and you could synergize this with some things if you wanted, but I just think it's way too basic. I don't think it's going to be used too much, but even if it's a weak card, the art makes up for it. I mean, like, Thorngaborg is one of those fun to look at cards. Of course, that one's a lot more helpful, but like even like a city blob, like that was like a funny card, and you know it sucks. So, anyways, that's my thoughts on McCrabba Blab. Crimson Grenade. So we're going with the new not creature cards, and this one's an Activator. So this time it's going down to 10 because there's no stats and whatever. Which is fine. So the art is done by Gavora once again, and I think it looks quite nice. I think it really captures what a grenade from Sheos would look like. So I think it's quite nice. Of course, it can't really do much since it's a grenade, and the shine is nice on the top too. So it's nice. The ability is quite good too. When your opponent attacks one of your zone's 6-star or lower Sheos creatures, switch the power of health of your Sheos creature during that attack. And this is great because a lot of creatures in Sheos where they have high attack and low health, so this is good for just walling if they decide to do something. Fortunately, there's 2 things that hold it back. One, 6-star or lower means that specifically for Firebolt Inari, like, that's just a nope, which I think stinks. And then secondly, a lot of these new cards, and there's also quite a few Sheos cards in general that just can't use this card to their advantage because, especially with the new cards shown, because a lot of them have even stats, which makes it kind of a downer, but I think this could still be easily used as a good sort of, you know, temple traps, if you could say, like everybody's saying. So I don't think it'll be outright terrible, but I just think there's a few factors that are holding it back. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next is Staruken, and this is definitely the weakest one out of the bunch. After the attached creature attacks and kills an opponent's creature, you gain stars equal to killed creature's stars. And this is great, except for the fact that attachments aren't competitive these days. There's just so many other cards that work so much better than this, like activators like Star Dealer, and just there's lots of other star gaining things. The art unfortunately also suffers. I don't know, it's just quite basic, and I don't know what's happening with that like third farthest star, but it just kind of looks wonky compared to the other two. Not saying it's bad, but I mean the first one looks quite nice, but I don't know, the back one just kind of looks wonky, unfortunately. The ability is just underwhelming. Not because it can't be used, because I think this is a decent card, attaching it, and then you're able to do that. But in today's competitive scene, first of all, attachments aren't a big thing in terms of even just this, where it's increasing stats and stuff. And then also just the fact that there's so many other better usages for getting stars. And then also creatures don't last long enough. Yeah, it's definitely a very weak card, unfortunately. Next is the first ridiculously rare out of 2 already. Seal of Eternity. This is quite a nice card. I don't know. It just has this great ominous presence, even though it's such a basic card. I don't know. It just looks just so... It fills everything so nicely, and it just looks just, I don't know, amazing. Just ominous and great. And like almighty, if you could even say. And the ability is just as good. When your opponent plays a creature or activator whilst having a creature in a battle zone, kill that creature or activator. That's honestly pretty insane, because basically this is kind of like an AAA where it just allows you to throw away things like Beast of the Black Hole, and although it's a bit held back simply by the fact that it can't be used in every situation that activators are used. Activators are usually mostly used to stop a player. So this is basically another activator, and not just even an activator, it kills creatures too, which is insane. And if you had 2 AAAs and 2 Seals of Eternity, you would have 4 ways to stop your opponent, just like that. Or stop your opponent's activators, and 2 ways to stop your opponent's creature with an activator, which is just, I don't know, it's insane. This could be really, really good, but it depends on how the rest of Step 5 turns out. So we'll see what happens. Then the final card was Zomatal, which was the limited edition made by Mushmallow. And I gotta say, Mushmallow, you definitely knocked this one out of the park. First of all, the design is very, looks very nice. It looks cute. It's gonna be very memorable. And it just looks very 3D as well. So just great. You smacked it out of the park. No offense to Gavora and Zack, but you did really well with that. In terms of stats, it's quite a good one for a 2-star too. It's supposed to be a wall, so 160 makes perfect sense. I think it could have been a little stronger, and then it could have been 3 stars, but I think it's fine. It is definitely really weak, so you gotta be really careful with the card. But the ability makes up for all of this. This ability is massive, both in terms of the amount of words. I mean, look at these words, bro. And then also just like how good it's gonna be. You can pay 2 stars to play this handed card as a battle zone on your planet. If so, it's no longer treated as a card. Whilst a Sheos creature is in this zone, it gains 100 power. Your opponent can attack this zone as if it were a creature, and if you had no zone creatures. So, although this creature on its own sucks, its ability lets you put a creature on there, and it gains 100 power, which is massive. This gives so much potential because some of these guys could get so much power from this, and I don't know, it's so cool. It's such an interesting idea. It's such a unique idea. I kind of want to see more of this where zones become some sort of boosting for your cards. It would just be so cool to see more of that. So this is like the most unique card, and I gotta say, Mushmallow, you definitely did your research on what CG needed, which is something as unique as this. So it's a fantastic card. It really shows how the community has, explored all the things related to CG compared to Zack. And it's not like Zack doesn't know everything about CG, but in terms of competitiveness, yeah, I don't know. I'm amazed by the community, and I think it's really cool. So that is it for the video. That is all the reviews that I have. Remember to subscribe if you want to see more CG, but not just to me. Also subscribe to Chaos Galaxy or Zack, and just go down into the links below. Click on them. You'll find some great stuff. Also watch his video because he does a really good job at introducing all the cards. So, thanks for watching, and remember that happiness is a warm puppy.